My brother fabricated an anonymous report accusing me of cheating on my SATs. It nearly cost me my scholarship, my college admission, and the future I had spent years working toward. My parents called it a misunderstanding, said I was being dramatic, so I didn't argue. I opened a folder. I called it the file. Inside it, I started collecting everything, every lie, every betrayal, every silent moment they told me to just be the bigger person. And when I finally shared it, when I put the truth out there, they had no idea what was coming. I'm Dr. Daniel Forbes, 34 years old. I'm a neurosurgeon, Harvard trained, and every week, I'm trusted to make life or death decisions on patients whose lives hang in the balance. But that's not where this story starts. It begins with a notebook. I was 13. Awkward, quiet. The kind of kid who preferred writing sci-fi stories to playing backyard football. My brother, Jeff, was 16. And even back then, he was already rehearsing for the spotlight. He had charm, he had that smile, and he had a cruel streak that he knew how to hide when adults were watching. It was my cousin Lex's birthday party. I had this little notebook with me where I was writing this ridiculous story about a space captain who falls in love with an alien princess. It was silly. It was emotional. It was everything a 13-year-old's imagination could dream up. Jeff found it in my backpack, and in front of 24 kids. He stood on a picnic table and read it out loud, every awkward kiss scene, every cringy bit of dialogue, every word I'd poured my heart into. Everyone laughed. I stood there frozen, burning with humiliation. When I lunged to grab it back, he held it over his head, still reading. I ended up crying behind the house, hiding in a bathroom until my mom found me 20 minutes later. I told her what happened. That Jeff read my private story in front of everyone. That he humiliated me. Her response, "Daniel, honey, you've got to learn to take a joke." Jeff wasn't being mean. He was just having fun. You can't be so dramatic about everything. That was the first lesson I ever learned about our family dynamic. In our house, being the bigger person meant being quiet. It meant pretending it didn't hurt. It meant making yourself smaller so the people who hurt you wouldn't feel uncomfortable. So I learned to stay quiet. But I also learned something else. I started taking mental notes, not just about Jeff, but about the whole pattern. Jeff could leave dishes in the sink for 3 days. Mom would eventually wash them herself. If I left one cereal bowl, I'd get a lecture about responsibility. Jeff could bring home C grades and get a "he's trying his best" speech. If I got an A-, I was told I needed to push harder if you want scholarships. By the time I got to high school, I'd stopped trusting my memory. I started writing things down. Not in a journal, not after what happened at Lex's party, but in the Notes app on my old cracked iPod Touch. Date, time, what happened, who said what. It started small. Just little entries to keep me sane. I told myself it was just in case I ever started doubting my own memory. Just in case I ever needed to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. Looking back, I realized that file probably saved my sanity. Because the gaslighting only got worse. Mom would tell me things like, "Jeff's just under a lot of pressure right now. Give him space," when he was being a jerk. Then she'd tell Jeff, "Daniel looks up to you so much. Try to include him." I wasn't looking up to him. I was trying to survive him. But I became the family go-between. The 12-year-old mediator. The one trying to smooth things over. The one always getting pulled into talks about how to help Jeff succeed or make things easier for everyone. When Jeff threw my PlayStation controller against the wall in a rage, I was the one who had to replace it. Maybe if you shared better, he wouldn't have gotten frustrated. My dad told me. When I asked why I had to pay for something he broke, the answer was, "It'll teach you to take better care of your things." That moment stuck with me. I hadn't thrown anything. I hadn't shouted. But I was the one who had to pay the price. That was the real lesson in our house. Whoever kept their cool was the one who got blamed because they were easiest to punish. I wasn't allowed to show anger, or disappointment, or confusion. Not unless I wanted it used against me. So I kept writing more notes, more dates, more details. I didn't have a name for it at the time. But now I do. They call it parentification. When a child is forced to act like the adult, by my sophomore year of high school. I was the one driving Jeff to work when he overslept and missed his ride. I was the one fixing the Wi-Fi before his presentations because Daniel's good with tech. I was the one who got in trouble when he forgot something. Because why didn't you remind him? And the financial stuff. That started creeping in too. Not in huge, dramatic ways, but little inconsistencies that added up over time. When Jeff wanted to take a photography class that cost $300, my parents paid for it because it would look great on college apps. When I asked for half that amount to attend a summer coding camp, I got the "we need to be careful about money right now" dog. It was subtle, but it was constant. And the worst part? No one talked about it. Not even me. I just added it to the file. Because when your reality is constantly rewritten in front of your face, when you're told over and over that what you see isn't what's happening, you start needing something solid to hold on to. Something real. A record. A lifeline. That file became my proof that I wasn't crazy. That what I was living through was not normal. That it wasn't just how families are. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Not yet. But I knew. One day, I'd need it. And one day, I'd use it. If you'd asked anyone on the outside, they would have told you we were a close-knit family. The kind that took matching Christmas card photos and posted long captions about gratitude on Facebook. My mom was a master of that public image. Every post was a filtered version of the truth. Smiling faces, perfect lighting. Just enough emotion to seem real, but never too real. Behind those photos, though, things were getting darker. Jeff wasn't just the golden boy anymore. He was becoming a problem. But in our house, the problem was always someone else's responsibility, usually mine. By my junior year, I'd taken over most of the adult tasks. I drove Jeff around when he forgot his car keys. I fixed the Wi-Fi, the router, the laptop, the printer, because apparently being good with tech meant I was tech support for the entire house. If Jeff missed a deadline, I got scolded for not reminding him. If Jeff got into trouble, I got looped in to help him fix it. It was exhausting. And the more I did, the more was expected. That's how it worked in our family. The more capable you were, the more invisible your needs became. Then came the car incident. Jeff had finally gotten his own car junior year. Nothing fancy, just a used silver sedan. But it represented freedom, independence. He wrecked it 3 months later. T-boned someone after running a red light while texting. The insurance covered most of it, but there was still a deductible, $2,500. 3 days after the accident, Jeff came to me directly. He didn't go to our parents. He didn't go to the bank. He came to me. "I just need $2,000 to cover the rest," he said, like it was a casual favor. "I'll pay you back in 6 months. Tops. Promise." "You know I will, little bro." I was 17. 17. with a college savings account I had built through scholarships, part-time tutoring, and gifts from birthdays I never spent. I didn't want to give it to him. But saying no wasn't really an option in our family, so I did what felt safest. I said yes, but I asked for a handwritten IOU. He laughed, but he signed it. March 15th, $2,000. Payback due in 6 months. I took a photo of it the second he left. That was Exhibit A. 6 months passed. No money. When I brought it up, he scoffed. It's family money. Don't be weird. Funny how that family help always went in one direction. But I didn't argue. I opened the file. I added the IOU photo, the bank withdrawal records, and the date of our conversation. Because that's what I'd learned to do. Stay quiet, stay organized, and stay ready. Then came the sabotage that changed everything. Senior year, I'd gotten into state with a partial scholarship. Not full ride, but enough to matter. I was proud. I'd worked hard. My GPA, my volunteer hours, my recommendation letters, I'd earned every inch of that acceptance. Jeff had applied too. But between the D he'd gotten in chemistry and the fact that he'd repeated sophomore year after failing algebra and English, he didn't get in. Not with scholarship money. Not even on a probationary status. And then, 2 weeks before graduation, I got called into the guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Bennett looked uncomfortable. "Daniel," she said, "I need to ask you something." The admissions office at State received an anonymous tip suggesting you may have cheated on your SATs. My whole body went cold. What? They're opening an investigation. I need you to write a formal response, get letters from your teachers, and you'll need to retake a portion of the SAT under supervised conditions. That's when my stomach truly dropped. It didn't matter that the accusation was baseless. It didn't matter that I had never, ever cheated on anything in my life. The allegation alone was enough to put everything at risk. My scholarship, my admission, my future. I did what I was told. I collected letters. I retook the test. I kept my head down and fought to clear my name. And through it all, Jeff was supportive. Too supportive. He'd pat my back, say, "Man, that sucks," and offer to drive me to meetings with the college counselor. "I'm sure it'll blow over," he kept saying. I didn't connect the dots at first, but I felt something was off. The way he kept smiling just a little too much. The way he seemed so calm while I was falling apart. The investigation eventually cleared me. No evidence of cheating. I kept my spot, my scholarship, and my composure. Barely, but something in me cracked that month. Not because of the accusation. Because of the silence in my own house. No one had asked how I was holding up. No one had said, "This must be terrifying." They just nodded like this was another minor hiccup I'd get over. That summer, I went digging. It started with an old email in my spam folder, sent from an address that looked legit at first glance, admissions.state209@gmail.com. But the domain wasn't right. The email had been sent to one of my teachers, asking if there were any concerns about my integrity as a student. The teacher had forwarded it to the actual admissions office. And that's what triggered the investigation. I ran the email headers through a basic IP lookup tool. Guess where it originated? Our home Wi-Fi. Jeff was the only person who had access to that email address. The only one who even knew the teacher's name. He must have heard me talking about it after class one day and filed it away for later like a weapon waiting to be fired. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I added it to the file. Exhibit B, fake email tip. Traced IP, timeline, connection to Jeff. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to explode. Because for the first time, I saw the full shape of the pattern. This wasn't random cruelty. It was sabotage. Systematic, deliberate, repeated. It wasn't just brotherly teasing. It wasn't normal family fights. It was a campaign, and it had been running for years. That night, I created a new section in the file. Evidence. I screenshotted everything. Emails, texts, dates, amounts, times. I started naming every file like it would one day be read in court. Because maybe one day it would. And I didn't just want to survive anymore. I wanted to be ready. By the time I got to college, I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just trying to stay away. 4 hours from home felt like freedom. Like air. For the first time in my life, I could breathe without checking who was watching. I didn't block anyone. I didn't make some big declaration. I just disappeared. I stopped reaching out. I responded to texts, but only with short answers. Holidays only. And even then, I'd drive in the morning and leave the next day. Never stayed overnight. Never unpacked my bag. My parents noticed. Of course they did. First came the check-in calls. Are you making friends? Is the independence hard? Are you lonely? I wasn't. When I kept saying everything was fine, they changed their approach. Jeff misses you. That one made me laugh out loud. Right. The same Jeff who read my private stories to a crowd. The same Jeff who wrecked my college savings. The same Jeff who nearly tanked my scholarship with a fake email and smiled while I sweated through the fallout. Yeah, I bet he missed me. Every time I came home, the vibe was the same. Carefully staged. My mom would post these polished Facebook updates how proud she was of both her boys. How wonderful it was to have the family together. She'd post a photo of me looking visibly uncomfortable while Jeff talked over everyone at dinner. Caption it, grateful for family traditions. What she didn't post was the reality. That Jeff had dropped out of his internship after 2 weeks. That he was on academic probation for failing 3 classes. That I was still covering part of his insurance because Dad said, let's keep it simple. The image mattered more than the truth. That became painfully clear when I started dating Maria. We met sophomore year. She was smart, driven, not easily impressed. She asked hard questions. She listened for what people didn't say. And most importantly, she didn't buy the version of me that I'd been taught to present. She saw through it. It scared me at first. So I kept her separate from them. I made excuses for 2 years. She's busy. She has her own family stuff. Work schedule's crazy. But the truth, I didn't want to watch Jeff tear me down in front of her. I didn't want to see her get that look confused, then hurt, then distant as my family told me who I was and expected me to smile along. But everything changed when I got a call from my cousin Lexi. We hadn't spoken in years. Not really. She said her therapist had asked her to revisit childhood moments that felt off. Then she asked me, do you remember my 8th birthday party when you fell down the stairs? I remembered the party, not the fall. She said, Jeff told everyone you tripped. But I was right there. Daniel. He pushed you. Hard. Because you were in his way, trying to get to the bathroom. You tumbled down, hit your head, got this huge bump. You don't remember that. My mind flashed to a moment of sitting on the stairs with an ice pack. Mom hovering nearby, telling me not to cry in front of the guests. Lexi had tried to tell her what really happened, and Mom said, you must be confused. Jeff wouldn't do that. That conversation haunted me for days, because if Lexi hadn't brought it up, I never would have remembered. How many other memories had I edited for safety? How many things had been rewritten before I even understood what was happening? That was the moment I realized Maria needed to meet my family, not because I wanted her in that world, but because I needed someone else to see it, to confirm I wasn't crazy. So, over winter break, we made the trip. It was a disaster. At first, Jeff played the charming older brother, big smiles, fake concern. "How's med school, little bro? Still thinking that's the right path for you?" Then came the comments, the digs. "You know, Maria, Daniel used to be such a control freak. He'd throw a fit if the Wi-Fi went down for 10 minutes. Or you've never seen him during finals week. Dude was like a paranoid robot. Kind of still is. Always with a grin. Always framed as just joking." My parents didn't say a word, just smiled along. At dinner, Jeff dominated the conversation, bragging about some get-rich-quick crypto thing he was into. I stayed quiet. On the drive back, Maria was silent for almost an hour. Finally, she said, "Your brother's a piece of work." I laughed bitterly. That obvious. He spent the entire weekend trying to tear you down, and your parents let him. She paused. They didn't just let him. They encouraged it, or pretended it wasn't happening. That was not normal. "Daniel." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. "Yeah." Then she asked something I hadn't expected. "What are you going to do about it?" It hit me like a punch. I'd been collecting data, building timelines, documenting every injustice for over a decade, but I had no endgame. I was surviving, not fighting back. I didn't say anything right away, just kept driving. 6 months later, I proposed. Maria said yes. And with that one decision, everything changed. Because now it wasn't just about me. It was about who we were building a life with. Who would be part of that life? And who absolutely would not? We decided early on the wedding would be small, 60 people max. No spectacle, no performances, just real love, real people. When I told my parents we were engaged, the first thing Mom asked wasn't, "When's the date?" or "How did you propose?" It was, "How many people are you inviting?" Dad followed up with, "What's the budget looking like?" Translation, "How much can we control?" I shut it down immediately. We're paying for it ourselves. It's going to be intimate. People who actually know us. Mom's face fell. 60? That's barely family. What about your cousins? What about our friends who've known you since you were little? It's our wedding, I said, not a reunion. Dad tried the financial angle. We can help out if that would make it easier to include everyone. Include everyone. Code for include Jeff. And that was never going to happen. That's when the pressure campaign began. Phone calls, guilt texts, comments like, "Some people outgrow their families when they get a little success." It all came to a head 3 months before the wedding. Jeff sent an email to our entire extended family. Subject line concerned about Daniel's wedding plans. I was CC'd. Whether it was a mistake or deliberate bait, I'll never know. But I opened it. And what I read, it wasn't just manipulation. It was war. The email was a masterpiece in manipulation. Jeff had always been good with words enough to charm, enough to distort, just enough to make it sound like concern instead of control. He wrote about how worried he was that I was pushing the family away. He said I'd changed since college, become distant, overly sensitive, prone to holding grudges. He said Maria had good intentions, but might be influencing me in unhealthy ways. That he feared I was making decisions based on childhood wounds instead of family unity. He called me brilliant, but sometimes reactive. And then he wrote the line that made my chest burn. I just hope he doesn't make a mistake he'll regret for the rest of his life. He ended it with a call for open hearts and family healing, and asked everyone to reach out to me. Subtext: Daniel's the problem. Talk some sense into him. I didn't respond. Not right away. I just sat in my office, rereading his words like they were written in a foreign language. Detached. Cold. This wasn't a brother trying to reconnect. This was a calculated move, a public relations tactic. He wanted to frame the narrative before the wedding, before the silence got too loud. He thought if he could get ahead of it, control the optics, I'd fold like I always had. But this time was different, because this time I had the file. I opened it like I was opening a vault. 15 years of notes, emails, texts, screenshots, receipts, timelines, and voice memos. I stared at that mountain of truth, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt prepared. I felt steady. So I got to work. I didn't write a long, emotional reply. I didn't argue with his version of events. I didn't use adjectives. I used exhibits. Exhibit A. A photo of the handwritten IOU from Jeff. Dated March 15th, 2018, $2,000. Promised repayment in 6 months. Never repaid. Exhibit B. Screenshot of the fake admissions email, sent from a Gmail account, traced back to our home IP. The professor's forwarding header. The investigation timeline. Exhibit C. Bank statement showing the withdrawal from my college savings. Labeled loan for Jeff's deductible. Authorized by Dad. March 18th. And on it went. 15 total entries. Each one labeled. Each one documented. Each one cold. Concise. And damning. I titled the PDF "Reconcerned about Daniel's wedding plans." Documentation attached. Then I sent it to the same distribution list Jeff had used. My message was 3 sentences long. Jeff invited the family to reach out to me regarding my wedding decisions. Before you do, please review the attached documentation outlining a history of behavior I can no longer tolerate. Make your own conclusions. That was it. I didn't beg. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I simply laid out the truth and walked away from the noise. Maria watched me hit send. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. We both knew this was the beginning of the real separation. Within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the second call. Then a third. When I finally checked the first message, her voice was shaking with tears. How could you do this to us? To your brother? To your family? Do you know how humiliating this is? You're destroying everything over ancient history. Dad's text followed. Son, this makes everyone look bad. Can't we handle this privately? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The point wasn't to argue. It was to draw a line and show them what they were standing on. Over the next 48 hours, a few more replies trickled in. My Aunt Isabel acknowledged receipt. Said she'd review and reflect. Lexi called. Her voice cracked. I'm proud of you, she said. I know that probably doesn't mean much coming from me, but thank you for finally saying it out loud. It meant everything. Jeff didn't reply directly, but I found out through the grapevine that he was calling other cousins, trying to clear the air. He claimed I had taken things out of context, that I was struggling mentally, that I needed professional help. It was textbook. Minimize, deflect, reframe. But this time, it wasn't working. Because this time, I wasn't the only one watching. Maria's cousin referred us to a family law attorney. His name was Michael. Early 40s. Calm. Deliberate. Specializes in restraining orders, harassment cases, digital evidence. I brought him the file. I expected some hesitation. Some version of, "Are you sure you're not just being dramatic?" But instead, he nodded and said, Most people don't come to me this prepared. Makes my job a lot easier. First step, cease and desist letters. One to Jeff, one to my parents. Both formal, legally drafted, delivered via certified mail. The language was simple and clear. They were to stop contacting me, my fiancé, my employer, and anyone involved in our wedding. Jeff's letter included an additional demand, a formal retraction of his original email, to be sent to the same distribution list. He had 10 days to comply. My parents' letter offered a choice. They could attend the wedding if they agreed not to mention Jeff, not to advocate for his inclusion, and not to create disruptions. If they couldn't agree to those terms, they were to decline the invitation within 7 days. The letters went out on a Wednesday. Jeff signed for his on Thursday. My parents got theirs on Friday. Then we waited. Jeff's response came through a lawyer, an aggressive letter accusing me of defamation, emotional manipulation, and threatening to sue for intentional infliction of distress. Michael laughed when he read it. Textbook intimidation. He's got nothing. My parents didn't respond in writing. Instead, Mom called Maria's mom, tried to go around us. Please talk to them, she begged. They're making a huge mistake. They're tearing this family apart. Maria's mom didn't flinch. I'm sorry you're hurting, she said. But this is between you and Daniel. We won't interfere. 10 days passed. No retraction from Jeff. No commitment from my parents. So we moved to the next step. Michael filed a claim in small claims court. We sued Jeff for the unpaid loan, $2,847 with interest and court costs. We had the IOU, the transfer record, the texts, the timeline. We also filed a police report about the fake admissions email. The detective was honest prosecution was unlikely, since it happened years ago. But the documentation mattered for the bigger picture. Then came the no trespass notices, certified letters to Jeff and my parents, officially notifying them they were not welcome at my home, my workplace, or the wedding venue. Copies were sent to the venue coordinator, along with photos. I paid extra for off-duty officers to staff the event. Security briefed, guest list locked, emergency plan in place. Jeff made one last attempt. He messaged Maria directly on Facebook, said he was worried about my mental health, said she should stage an intervention. She screenshotted it. We forwarded it to Michael. Unwanted contact after a cease and desist. Documented. Filed. Ready? And just like that, the tables had turned. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't surviving their dysfunction. I was holding them accountable, and the countdown to the wedding had officially begun. By the time spring came around, the wedding wasn't just a ceremony anymore. It had become a line in the sand, a declaration of what I would and wouldn't allow in my life moving forward. Every choice Maria and I made, from the guest list to the music, had a single filter. Does this honor our peace? If it didn't, it was gone. And if someone violated that peace, we were ready. Jeff never retracted his email. So we went to court. He didn't even show up. Didn't send a lawyer. Didn't respond to the summons. So the judge granted us a default judgment, full repayment of the loan, plus interest and court fees. $2,847. 6 weeks later, his paycheck got garnished. Turns out, Jeff had been working at a friend's marketing startup, and their payroll company processed court orders fast. The first deduction was $186. Small amount, maybe. But for Jeff, it was a symbol. Every time he checked his bank statement, he'd see the reminder. Actions have consequences. And this time, the consequences came with documentation. He didn't like that. We knew, because right after the garnishment started, Maria received a text from an unknown number. Just one sentence. Do you really want to build a life with someone who turns on his own family? Blocked, screenshot, forwarded to Michael. Another documented violation. That same week, Jeff drove by our apartment building. Our neighbor had a camera facing the street. Caught his license plate. 3 times in 4 days. Michael filed for a restraining order. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks before the wedding. Meanwhile, my parents tried one last thing. They showed up at our door. No warning, no call. Just stood there holding a gift bag. I didn't open it. Didn't open the door. I spoke through the intercom. You were served a no trespass notice. You need to leave. Or I'm calling the police. They left. But not before Mom turned to our neighbor and said, loud enough for the camera to catch. I just wanted to see my son. He's being so cruel. Classic. Play victim. Shift the blame. Make the boundary look like betrayal. But I didn't take the bait. I filed that footage too. At the restraining order hearing, Jeff didn't show up, but my parents did. With their own lawyer, he argued they were just concerned parents, that they didn't understand why normal family contact was being criminalized. The judge didn't buy it. These parties received multiple cease and desist requests. She said, they ignored those requests and escalated contact. The petitioner has shown a consistent pattern of harassment, boundary violations, and emotional manipulation. Restraining order granted. 3 years, renewable. They were not to contact me, Maria, or appear at any location associated with us, including our wedding venue. Copies of the order went to the security team. Our coordinator laminated the photos of Jeff, my parents, and flagged their names in the guest registry. Only 60 people were invited. Every single one had been personally confirmed. The guest list was locked. No plus ones, no surprise visits. The venue staff had walkie-talkies, emergency protocols, and off-duty cops who had the restraining order printed in their pockets. It sounds dramatic, but in our case, it wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. Because the morning of the wedding, the venue coordinator called me. Just wanted to confirm your security team is fully briefed. Photos are distributed. We've also posted staff near all secondary entrances. Everything is locked down. Perfect, I said, and I meant it. Because for the first time in my life, I felt completely safe. Not just physically. Emotionally. The ceremony was outdoors. Simple. Elegant. Maria walked down the aisle to a string version of Can't Help Falling in Love. I cried before she even reached me. We had written our own vows. And when I stood there holding her hands, looking into her eyes, I wasn't thinking about Jeff, or my parents, or the fallout. I was thinking about peace, about future, about the family we were choosing to build, and the one we were choosing to leave behind. The reception was even better. Lexi gave a speech. She talked about resilience, growth, and breaking cycles. She didn't name names, but everyone knew. Maria's dad stood up next. He talked about love, not just romantic love, but the kind that shows up. The kind that protects. The kind that never demands silence in exchange for acceptance. No one mentioned the people who weren't there. There were no passive-aggressive toasts. No guilt-laced blessings. No maybe one-day speeches. Just joy. Real, unfiltered, and earned. About 2 hours into the reception, one of the security guards approached me. I felt my stomach tighten. Had they shown up? He leaned in. 2 individuals matching your parents' photos approached the main gate about 20 minutes ago. They had a gift bag. Said they were there for the wedding. We explained they weren't on the guest list and asked them to leave. I nodded. Did they comply? Yes, sir. No incident. Thank you. I didn't even mention it to Maria until later that night. There was no reason to. They hadn't made a scene. And even if they had, I wouldn't have let them ruin what we had built. That day belonged to us, and it had gone exactly the way we hoped. That night, when we got back to the hotel, Maria curled up beside me. She whispered, "That was perfect." And it was not because it was fancy, or because of the food, or the dress, or the speeches, but because for the first time I felt free, not running, not hiding, just living, on our own terms, with the people who chose us, fully and without condition. 3 days later, we started the name change process. It was something I'd quietly thought about for months. Not just a symbolic act, but a break. A clean one. I took Maria's last name. For the first time, I was no longer Daniel Smith. I became Daniel Forbes. Not just a husband, not just a doctor, but a man with a future that didn't include rewriting the past. For a while, everything was quiet, peaceful. We bought a small house. Nothing extravagant, but perfect for us. Good neighbors, a backyard for future kids, and security cameras on every corner just in case. We didn't hear from Jeff. Not directly. Not for almost a year. Then our son was born. We kept the news private, just immediate family. Close friends. No public posts. No announcements. Just one photo on a locked account. And somehow, he still found it. I got a text from an unknown number. It was just a photo of my son clearly lifted from social media and a message that read, "Beautiful grandson. Hope we can meet him someday." My stomach dropped. Blocked, screenshot, sent to Michael. Violation of the restraining order. The next day, we locked everything down again. Accounts, devices, contacts. We erased any breadcrumbs he could follow. 2 weeks later, the police called. Jeff had been caught on a neighbor's security camera, circling our street again. He pled no contest. Got 6 months supervised probation. The restraining order was extended for 3 more years. And me, I didn't feel anger, just relief, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing, this time, I wasn't the one running. Some people think cutting off family is the end of something. For me, it was the beginning. After everything, after the restraining order, the silence, the court dates, the fallout, I didn't feel bitter. I felt clean, like I'd rinsed years of poison out of my life. Maria and I built something real. Not perfect, but honest. Peaceful. Rooted in love. Not obligation. Our son became the center of it all. And I made him a promise. The first night I held him, "You will never have to earn love by staying quiet." That one sentence became my compass. Every decision, our estate plan, guardianship forms, emergency contacts was made to protect him. Jeff and my parents were legally excluded from every future possibility. No chance of interference. No loopholes. I even updated our wills. Wrote in plain language why certain names were left out. The lawyer called it airtight. Maria understood. Her family had been functional enough that none of this made sense to her at first. But she saw the pattern. And she saw what it cost me. She never questioned the boundaries again. We posted less, spoke less, but lived more. Then one night, Maria asked me, "Do you ever wish things had gone differently? That you had a normal family?" I thought about it, and I told her the truth. I used to, but not anymore. I don't miss what we didn't have. I just wanted something safe, and now we have that. A few months later, I started a channel. just low-key at first. Talking about boundaries, about recovery, about surviving toxic family dynamics. Didn't expect anyone to care. But people did. Turns out, a lot of us have stories we were taught to keep quiet. Now I tell mine. And more importantly, I listen. Because healing isn't about proving the past was wrong. It's about building a future that doesn't repeat it. So if you're listening to this and wondering if you're overreacting, you're not. If you're wondering whether you're allowed to say enough, you are. And if you need to hear it from someone who lived it, you're allowed to choose peace over blood. And that choice, it just might save your life.